Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, one of the most valuable hours of your day. From around the world, we want to bring our audience and fellow inhabitants good news, techniques, tips, insights, and methods to raise a culture of excellence and improvement in themselves and those around them. Today's show, effective tools make all the difference. We continue our 8-week journey to get to know our crew and their skills and abilities while also getting to know techniques and tips to finding out more about who you are and your own self-development. So on today's episode, we continue our examination of our own Tim Flynn's Foundations of Self-Development, the final discussion of step one, self-discovery. If you were here with us on Monday, we discussed some of the tests, quizzes, and opportunities to collect data, seeing who we are, and a bit more clearly. On Wednesday, we discussed some of our experiences and thoughts on some of the various techniques. Today, we're going to talk about what we can do with the data, digging down into ourselves and finding the real gold within who we are, as well as some of the tools and understandings we can derive from self-discovery. And just for all our live viewers, if you have questions or comments, feel free to throw them in there. We'll try and answer them as we see them. And with that said, we've got 5 of our crew today. And so I'll start off with some of the members that weren't here on Wednesday. How about Dennis, you want to kick it off with some of the things you found interesting about the exercise and what you find most important?
Sure, thank you very much. Hi, everybody out there. Um, well, uh, effective tools make all the difference. I put my name under that. And then what comes to my mind is that also it's not only to have an effective tool, because if you have a fantastic power tool or even just a hammer, but it's just collecting dust and you never use it, then it could be the best tool of the world, but it won't serve you any good because you're not using it. So it's to have a great tool, and something that I appreciate so much, and I learned to appreciate that since this week especially, because it's like the possibilities that we have and the potential that we have as a group, just bouncing back and forward those effective tools that some of you would have used, and I come across it and I share some of them, some of what I have. So that's really like the power of this co-creation, really, that we have people that know and have effective tools in their pocket, so to say, and are willing and able to share them, and that is really, that has been mind-blowing for myself these last few days, as I have been doing the homework and trying out some of those tools. And yeah, I had experience through autonomy with the gem model already. And that was really something that had a tremendous impact on me, and I kind of reviewed that lately again, and it pointed out strengths and weaknesses, of course. And it impacted my daily life, actually, as I could observe myself from a new perspective, like recognizing patterns when I was interacting, even with my family, but with clients, with some of my students as well. And what was like one example that was really revealing, because I really found myself in that in the pearl gem, so to say, in that gem module. And I found that, yeah, like my whole life, like my motivation, for instance, was never money, it was to help others. And it's like something that's like so clear. So it has been, like right in front of me. Literally everything that I've been doing was motivated by helping. That's what I want to do most. So I want to help people, I wanted to help the children in Jamaica, and like it's just like right through. And although it was there, and it's really easy to make out, but I never really thought about it like that. So that tool in particular, it led me to understand some of the things that might seem obvious once you know them. But it's here in Germany we have a saying. It says, uh, you're not able to see the uh, the trees standing in front of the wood, instead of the wood. So it's something that was right in my face, but I couldn't recognize it, so I wasn't aware of it. So that being said, those tools helped me to recognize, and they kind of shine a light, and they brought to awareness some of the things, some of the patterns, and some of the ways that I act and interact with others on a daily basis. And yeah, so I feel I just really scratched the surface of what these exercises can do for me, and I'm really excited sorry, to continue digging deeper with them. And the even the astrology things that I went through, like I lost myself, and, and like I spent much more time that I actually wanted to dedicate to it, even this evening. And yeah, it's like really, it's hard hitting, because it points out so many things that are yeah, it just, yeah, it's compatible with what has happened in my life, and with the tendencies that I seem to have. And I think if I now stick to my own words and use those tools, then my next step would be of really writing down and resuming the very relevant things for me at this time. And yeah, just put them up somewhere, read to them like daily or weekly, and yeah, just remind myself of what I'm good at, and of what my weaknesses are, so I can really tap further into my potential, at work, with my family, with students, with friends. And yeah, we'll see where this can lead. I really feel like I learned a lot, and I feel that really this is just scratching the surface still. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I'm sure some of the other members also have some experiences to share. So I want to, bounce it
I
over
just have
to
something to add really
Heidi.
quick here.
Sure.
Our podcast has graduated officially to the level that we have our own little peanut gallery. There is
Nice.
a gentleman named Chris Macmillan. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but he's saying that his favorite tools for self improvement are Zoom, Discord, OBS, and Excel. And his iPhone is an Orwellian device in his pocket. So shout out to Chris. Also, I got a message from Discord saying that they can hear and see everybody this time. So the autonomy crew is also included. So yay!
Welcome, everybody. Willow, you want to continue the discussion? What was your experience with the different tests and quizzes and so forth?
Personally, I found it, I always look for the right word. It was priceless to me. I struggle with being dysregulated all the time. Very often, I'm kind of caught in an emotional flashback. So it's very similar to like PTSD, where you're just having the emotions of what's going on in the past. And up until I started doing these tests, I started taking, like my ACE score and my personality, I started to understand the parts of my personality a little bit better, and better explain that to other people. It really just helped me with the journaling exercises and everything. It helped me realize how often I am reacting based on not a chemical imbalance, the word is escaping me, an emotional flashback. I'm reacting to that versus what's going on in reality, which has made the communication between like me and everyone else, so I can explain what's going on, why my face looks the way it does at the current time, what that means, what I'm trying to convey, because a lot of times my body reactions will convey something completely different from what I'm feeling. My face will look scared, and I actually feel fine because I'm not aware that my body is, that I'm just living in that state. So being more mindful about who I am, or not just who I am, the things that I'm doing, it's priceless. Sorry, I'm not that much of a talker tonight.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the contribution. Agnieszka, you want to jump in and what's going on with you and what you've seen so far? What's important?
I love the it's like if life is a journey to self discovery where we're learning step by step about who we are, and it's almost like receiving a present. When we're born, we receive a present, but it's really tightly wrapped and we're not really sure what it is. And then shortly after, when we start speaking and expressing ourselves, in our society especially, we receive a bunch of don't be like that, don't say this, don't do this, be like this, be like that. And that does not really help us unwrap that little present that we got when we were born. So it's more like more wrapping paper on top of the present. So then you have this totally wrapped present and you have no idea what's inside when you get to your 20s. And what are you supposed to do with this, right? And if there's a new trauma or, adverse childhood experiences or anything like that, it can get in between the layers of wrapping. So then if you start unwrapping, this bad shit comes out. Well, you don't want to deal with that. You might stop unwrapping at that point, right?
I was going to say, it's like that time my sister put tape on the wrapping paper.
That's right.
So you just get layers of wrapping paper and then tape and then wrapping paper.
Right. And so I think it's important to really continually take layers off, right? And so if the test or a tool that you use gives you one little gem, one little thing you know about who you really are and how you can really serve the world, how you can really live your fullest life, that's awesome, because it's one layer off, and eventually you're dig to the bottom, and you will be purely who you really are in every instance, in every interaction.
So you would say you feel that those tools can help us to cut through even the social conditioning that all of us went through, to many degrees, I guess, and that's something I really would. I thought that was really great how you expressed that, because one thing that stood out for me also was that, in a way, I think I have an extensive background, like, evaluating myself and even others, like from a physical point of view, like training, working out, and so I have some experience with that, and it those tools actually, they open up like a side that I have not like specialized in before, like more like an emotional side, and recognizing like a perspective that I have not taken or was not experienced before. And I really agree, like when you say that the those layers, we say develop, it's about development. The course is about self-development. So to develop means like to unwrap, that what is wrapped. So like I always have the picture of an onion in front of me, and you keep on peeling off those layers until you come to the very inside, and then on the very inside you have nothing, which is not nothing, but it's no thing. So it's not a thing, so you cannot feel it, hear it, taste it, touch it, or even describe it with words, but it's there. It's not like a void, but it's like actually it's like infinite potential and possibilities that are there. Like the story of the father who told his son to to cut through the mango, and then he had the seed, and he said, so what is that? But there's a seed, and then he cut through the mango seed, and you open the seed, and then there's emptiness, and there's also like it's not a thing, but it's infinite potential, because out of that no thing there comes like a huge tree with abundance of fruits and life and all of that. So I heard that that was the picture like I got when you were just describing how we can actually really cut through all those layers that keep us wrapped in. I feel it plays nicely in how I can see life, which is the infinite basically wraps itself and veils itself in several layers, of even our physicality and everything else that makes up ourself. And then the game really is to cut through those layers and to really cut through to the essence, to who we really are. And I think with those exercises that Tim shared with us, and those that we would have been exposed through autonomy and through our individual journeys, it just gets so much more exciting, because it's like it's a playfulness, and we have received tools, effective tools, and we're using those tools. So it feels like we're stepping up another level with the help of those tools and supporting each other on that journey.
All right. Well, I wanted to
And
cut to
just for,
Deirdre.
sorry, Michael, I'm just going to remind everybody that we have listed all of the tools. Well, not all of the tools. We have listed some of the tools that our coaches specifically selected for the audience in a blog post, and it should be in the description to all of the self-discovery videos. So if you're looking for the tools, that's where they are. Michael.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Deirdre. What's exciting about what you've heard so far? Sounds like you got a little bit of
Um,
feedback there.
oh, am I coming through okay? Or like how we've had
There's a little bit of static, but I think you're okay.
might be my headset. Um, sorry, what was the question?
Well, just in general, all the things you provided us with a little bit of insight yesterday's show with kind of looking through your purse. We got to find out a lot more about you. But what really have you derived from all this experience so far?
Sure. Oh, just the same thing. Insight. Um, looking into the darker aspects of myself really helped. It enabled me to stop beating myself up. Oh my gosh, why am I so snarky sometimes? Like mean. and it's kind of just, well, hang on, what if I just accept that that's a part of me? That's how Sam would say, Willow would say, and just to kind of acknowledge that I can use that as also, like, if I'm in a very a situation where I've got people attacking me or being trying to corner me, it can be utilized in those scenarios where it would be very effective, very quickly put people in their place. So that acceptance was a really good insight for me.
So Dee, you and I were speaking earlier today, and you were talking about some of the tools that you have developed or that you have studied that were specifically geared to looking at the dark aspects of our inner psyche. Can you talk a little bit more about these tools, because we have not touched on those this week at all?
Sure. Well, maybe it was last year it was created. I get post for psychometric tests because I really am interested in measurement. And this one was the development of the three triad of dark aspects of your personality. So that's it measures only those aspects to see how much you have. So it's not like there would be zero to any of these. So that would be malevolentianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. And it measures how much you actually have of those. And yeah, I've done the test. That was really interesting. It kind of matches the kind of the snarkiness in me. So it's not like it's bad, but when it comes out, I know what angle it comes out as.
So our listener Chris wanted
handy.
a little bit more of a explanation of, what do you mean someone corners you? What do you mean someone attacks you? How do people attack you?
Oh, okay. That would be any in a social situation, most likely, rather than like a physical hunt me down type thing. It's more just to be underhanded, trying to humiliate me, cornering in that aspect where I've got things that I don't feel comfortable sharing in front of people that in certain situations. Like, I know I share a lot on the podcast because that they are parts of me that I've shared already. So I'm not uncomfortable sharing those. So it would be in those situations where I'm forced to do something that I don't feel comfortable doing, and kind of, instead of just kind of shrinking down and going, well, I don't really want to do this. And it's more like, no, actually, I can kind of shoot somebody right where it's going to hurt, and they're going to like just crumble because they put me in a situation where I didn't want to be in. I don't know if that made sense.
Hopefully made sense to Chris.
I also wanted to mention. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have more?
Yeah, just that.
Okay.
That just because I was always taught that those, I don't know, aggressively told, oh, you're just, wow, you have a really, what is it? I used to say I have a big mouth, or I have a really meanness. And it's just that I was pushed down that that's just, ladies don't do that. You don't say things like that. You don't pick things about people that are like that. That can really hurt their feelings. How selfish of you. How dare you? And it's that was kind of really beaten into me. I'd say like a teacher with a ruler. That's how it felt like. And it's kind of so accepting those aspects as kind of that I could see them as almost my ego kind of stepping up. I don't let my ego get a hold of me, but my ego could be there to to stand up for myself, for my self-worth. So I'm protecting myself, and so I can allow it kind of to have the reins in those situations. What do you guys think?
That's usually when I encounter a part that's like that someone refers to it as the ego, or it's a defensive part where it only comes out to defend. That's its job. It's there to defend. I've seen people who have been severely abused to like moderately abused. I mean, not saying either one is better, but they all kind of have the same reaction, where they have this part who won't give in. It will not allow them to give in and give up, because if it does, they're kind of lost. So I will see people who have gotten out of the abusive situation and they are just spitting blood, so angry and so defensive that they can't accept anything, because that's their only way of surviving at the current time.
And that really is also part of the role of the ego, right? Like, it is there for a reason. It's not, oh my God, the ego is the bad and it's not supposed to be there, but we have the ego because that essence, who we truly are, the infinite, is expressing itself through a finite being, which is, the ego is part of it, our physicality is part of that. So if we wouldn't have the ego, which is, it includes our personality, our individual expressions, which we are really finding out more about through those exercises as well, finding out what we react to, the good sides, the bad sides, and finding out how this this system basically runs, that I'm not sure if we are moving it or if it's being moved through us, so it's I believe I believe strongly that the ego is something that is part of us. It's part of ourselves, and so we have to recognize that, and that's a struggle in itself, to realize and recognize, we have certain behavior patterns, we have certain ways we react to certain things, and I think that is part of the whole exercise as well, to see what triggers us, to see what are our strengths, and what we have to do in particular to advance, and to essentially not have to identify with the ego, because to accept that it's there, I think that is one of the foundational things to do. But to already be able to see it and to describe it, that means that we have already a point of view where we can look at it from the outside. That means that we are not completely identified with it. So I think the biggest problem is when we identify with our lower self, with the ego, however we want to call it, and think that that's all there is, and that we have to react that way because we have been taught like that, and we have seen it on TV, and we have been conditioned to act like that, and there's no way out. But the way out is actually to realize that this is not all of who we are, but that there's more to it. And then also to do what we're doing right now with those exercises, which ultimately I feel all really and truly lead us back to to the center of the hub of the wheel, to who we truly are.
But the ego has another role, right? It's not just like, the ego is not a bad part of you. Like Chris says, attachment to ego is a liability. The ego is there to protect you, right? It's just that the ego believes that anything outside the status quo is dangerous. So it's like an overprotective mother, and it fights for maintaining of the status quo. And sometimes it fights really, really, really aggressively, and it's very uncomfortable for the self, right? But at the same time, the ego, the ego holds you back, but it also protects you.
I was also going to say, because in IFS, it's important to recognize ego as a part. Therefore, if you feel like you are working from ego, you are blended with that part, and you have to ask that part to step back and say, I recognize you. You are here for a reason. I need to listen to you when you need to say something, but you can't be me. Self and ego are not the same thing. So you have to learn to, like, this is part of self-discovery. One of my favorite things is to ask a client, this part that you're coming at me from, do they realize that they are not the same part as self? And sometimes the look on their face will tell you just enough, and they're like, what? I have more parts? And I actually had the same thing. I had a session with Tim, counselor to counselor, and he got me to realize that I was working from one of my figure it out parts. So I'd go into a session and I'd be like, I want to know everything about you. And that would scare the crap out of them because they're like, I don't know you. We haven't developed trust.
Yeah.
It's true. What came to my mind also is, I agree that, the ego is there to protect, and it has its role, and at the same time, if you cut through it, or like a way of cutting through the ego is like, so who are you protecting? Who are you, like the self? So who is the self? Does the self need to be protected? Does it need it? Because the ego is very keen, like it will, like it's clever, it's smart, like it camouflages itself as the self, and then when you cut through again, then it's the ego again. So it's like more of those layers, and we ourselves are very good at creating more of those layers that we thought, oh, we made a breakthrough and we're there, and then we figure out, no, we're not fully there, because we're really still attached to something and to some form of the persona, which is the name of our mask, really, the person. So that was as far as I know, is the in Greek times, the personae was the mask that people, actors, put in front of their faces in order to convey emotions to the audience. So they would stand like on the stage, or like in the amphitheater, and then they would put like huge masks in front of their faces, like holding them on a stick, which would then basically enlarge their faces and their emotional expression. So that was called the person. So it's not like the real face, but it's the mask in front of us. So to cut through the mask and to see what's behind there, that I think that's part of the game that we're playing.
Isn't it the Japanese or the Chinese that has the saying that everyone has three faces, one you wear in public, one you wear in private, and one only you see? And a lot of people don't want to see the last one. They're like, I don't even want to see that. I'm not gonna look in the mirror.
True.
Well, we're having an interesting discussion. I did want to mention that one of our fellow autonomy students has written a book called The Holistic Self-Assessment, and that's another possible tool that could be used to develop some self-discovery. And so I wanted to acknowledge that. And then I guess I want to throw it out as a question. We've talked about a little bit of this, but I want to be a little bit more distinct about, what do you guys think about the opportunities in regard to some of these tests that we can acknowledge that might be useful as far as strengths for specific people, versus what could be threats or what could be possible negative outcomes from maybe trusting some of these tests? Does anybody want to touch on that?
I think that the biggest trap that we are that is set for us in society is that the trap of allowing other people fix us. So a lot of people go to tests or psychotherapists or coaches or other providers, and they have an expectation of this other person to solve their issues. So basically, I have an hour between 3 and 4 on a Friday afternoon, and I'm going to go to somebody to fix my personal issues. And then I don't have to think about it for another week until it's by 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, next Friday, when I see this person again. And then they take their personal power and they give it to the therapist, allowing the therapist to make all the decisions for them and expecting a solution from the outside. Whereas that's not how the game is played.
In other words, they relinquish self-responsibility and give responsibility then to a test or to a book or to a consultant or to a psychiatrist. And I think that reminds me of my, again, like I think in picture. So like I was saying, I think it was on Monday, when I work with somebody, like I feel like I want to walk beside him or her. I don't want to, lead or drag somebody. Like I don't have to be bigger or better or anything. Like I just, I'm on a path, and if that person feels attracted, and then let's go walk it together. But it's not and it's like, taking somebody by the hand and walking with them, and maybe, telling, oh, go around this corner, and I've walked this road a little bit, and giving them advice or so. But it's never um to make them dependent on you, on your vision, on your background. Because, and even with children too, as a father, it's like, it's the hardest thing sometimes, but it's to realize that they're not my children. They are my children, as well as they're not my children, because they came here through me. But at the same time, they have their own agenda, so to say. They have their own experiences to make. They have their own path in front of them. And who am I to know and to determine, what is even good for them and what is bad for them? So of course, like, we have our rules as parents, as friends, as teachers as well. But we also have to continuously remind ourselves that, we don't even know our own path, really. We like on a journey of self-discovery. So I think it's essential to stay humble also, and to be open, and really rather help people to find themselves, to find their true self, and see how what we have discovered so far can maybe help them on their journey of finding themselves, rather than making them dependent on us, and to saying, oh, I know everything, and you have to pay me this money and do this and that and follow my order, and if you don't, then, oh my god, then you're gonna go down to hell, or you're gonna, like all those institutions and people who live on on the dependency of other people to them, actually, strive. And that really, I think that is not our path, and that is also why I'm so grateful to be with you here.
It's funny because a very obvious example of that kind of tendency in people is when they have a physical ailment. Like, say somebody pulls a muscle and has a back problem or something. They go to the massage therapist and they expect the massage therapist to fix their back. But when you pull a muscle or have a back problem, there are things that you should be doing daily, maybe a few times a day, stretching, laying down, not sitting at the computer as much, taking steps to actually fix your back issue. But a lot of people just show up on a Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. and say, yeah, my back's been hurting all week. Do something about it. I got an hour, and they want the therapist in 1 hour to fix whatever they messed up in a month or, 2 weeks or whatever.
And if it's true that your physical environment, including your body, is just that, it's just a manifestation, a material manifestation of your psyche, of what you truly are on the inside, then that pulled muscle on the back in your example, what is that telling you? Like, what what is that forcing you to do? When did it happen? What were your thoughts? What was your emotional state when it happened? What went through your mind? What is it preventing you from doing? What is it urging you to address? Or maybe you can't get up, or maybe you cannot sit in front of the computer again because your eyes get blurry, whatever it is. But there's,
or maybe you just wanted to get out of the afternoon social because the ladies are mean.
And you were not, you couldn't get, put yourself in a position to voice that, so your body is voicing it for you, or is putting you out, for that way. So it's really interesting to observe it from that perspective. Like, what is life trying to tell me with this right now, with this situation, with a person that's shouting at me, or with a child nagging, or with a pulled muscle in the back. That's really then it puts you in a state of, wow, that's actually interesting. So you're already like, curious to find out, like, where's this leading me, and what is this pointing at, instead of, oh my god, me again, and why this and why that, which is not really going to give you like a quality answer.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to tie that back. Sorry, go ahead, Deirdre.
No, I was going to tie it back to the measurements of the test, but you go, and then I will.
Okay. When you were talking about like having a physical wound, a pulled muscle or something, it reminded me of, it's very similar with emotional wounds, because like, for example, the Gym Personality Test, I remember my husband and I had a conversation. He had taken it before me, and he was like, you're a pearl. I guarantee you're a pearl. And I was like, okay. And I did it. And I was like, I'm a sapphire. I am so not a pearl. But I realized what he was picking up on, and what a bunch of other people had picked up on, was similar to how, like, Dan Locke became more Ruby for his job. When you experience trauma, sometimes you can become very Pearl because being subservient, doing what you're told, not questioning is the safest route. So I was actually able to realize what parts of my personality were. I could tell because I would get anxiety. It would be like, I have to make sure that I'm on time so that everyone else doesn't think badly of me. And I was like, oh, yeah, I get a lot of anxiety about that. Okay, that's me trying to do something to correct my behavior for others, not because I actually want to do it. But if I didn't take the time to say, no, I feel differently about that, or I'm not just going to accept what the test says, I would have been like, I have no idea who I am because I'm half Pearl and half Sapphire, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
But Pearl and Sapphire are
with
really, Sapphires are like a version of pearls, right? Like, or like the party version of pearls. Is it, if
Yeah.
I remember right?
yes.
The pearl in a party hat.
We probably need to remind the audience kind of what those four are and what are the basic characteristics.
Well, let's see. Who do we have here? I know I'm a Sapphire, and I believe that Agnieszka is a Sapphire.
I'm part sapphire.
Okay.
In every test, I was like 25% of each or close. So I'm confused by the whole.
You're
gem
too well rounded.
Well, well, see, that's the whole thing with testing and measurement and stuff. Is that the more you sit a test, if you sit the same test again and again, you can manipulate the test to get the answers that you want. And so, therefore, in psychology, they'd say the test is polluted because you can craft it to give you whatever answer you want. But if you do a test and you haven't done it before, and you and you just give yourself only a few seconds to actually think and then just go through, it's going to give you a fair gauge. That's one thing about tests. The other thing is that they just a guesstimate, okay, about this, rather than just to kind of strictly depend upon. I knew a person who did the Myers-Briggs, and then that was their only interaction with people. Oh, well, I don't do that because that's not my personality. Oh, well, I'm going to be an arsehole because that's my personality. Oh, well, I'm going to say this because that's my personality.
I love it
and
when tests give you permission to be an asshole. Isn't that awesome?
It's similar to the cliche about girls who are like, I'm a Pisces, that's why I'm crazy.
And that points really out that which I think is at the essence of all of that as well, which is, you know, we can do all the tests and we can identify ourselves or categorize ourselves in any which way, and there's like, you know, much more than the ones we even did, and there's like Ayurveda, there's more health and more food related stuff, so it's like I think it's part of humanity also, like to try to, you know, put ourselves and even other people, you know, like in boxes, or to categorize in order to try to make sense of, you know, how other people and how we also react and act and interact with the world that we live in. And at the same time, it always, you know, it always comes back. The motivation of that is actually really to understand ourselves, right? Which is what this week is about, to really cut through the layers and to deeper understand ourselves. And while I feel that all of these tests are really revealing, and it's what you are getting at this moment is really which was at the core of the gem model as well, which is based on an ancient way also of categorizing. I think it was based in the 4 elements ultimately, and then, you know, somebody came up with a gem, somebody else come up like with different animals, and but it's basically the same model with different
it's all
animals or
Jungian
different names associated.
archetypes. All of
Yeah.
the different ones is Jungian archetypes.
And I think in essence it is, as you're pointing out, you know, there's some people are fully identified with one of the 4, others have like parts of all of them, or parts of 2 or parts of 3. But the ability, I think, where it's going to is that we have the potential to be in all of those quadrants and to be all of them. And I think mastering and truly cutting through, we really resting in the true essence of our true self, so to say, actually gives us the ability to be in all of those quadrants and to have the qualities and the aspects of all of them, and at will, so to say. And because that would mean then to use our full potential as human beings, to be a sapphire when we need to be a sapphire when we go to the party, and to be a pearl when we need to help people, and to be a ruby if we need to make some money, and all those other things. So I think that is the true ability, not to be stuck and have to be stuck in one of them, but to have the ability to shift and to use them, in situations when we actually have to use them, at home or at work, because our life is continuously changing. And today we might be here, tomorrow we might be working out really hard, and then there's winter, and then we fly across the world. So our nutrition, the workout, the rest, the people we interact with, all of this is continuously changing. So it sounds logic to me that also our behavior patterns, our ability to act and to interact with those things that come into our lives also would have to be continuously changing in order for us to keep in balance. So it's not something static, but it's something that continuously moves and shifts throughout our life, as we all, we were talking about cyclical things like the day, the month, the year. So I believe it's something that moves, that always moves, and that's never static.
Yeah, I was going to also add, one of the things that I guess we didn't really talk about was kind of an energy assessment, like how our energy functions throughout the day for us, because a lot of times when we have a lot of energy during different parts of the day, those are probably when we should be utilizing our strengths to our highest extent. And then at the same time, when we're on our low energy part of the day, and we feel low energy, it's probably best to be really cognizant of what our weaknesses are, because those are probably when those things are going to show up. And so I just thought I'd mention that. I don't know if anybody wants to.
The other thing you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, hang on a second. The other thing you mentioned earlier was about the book that one of our autonomy students have written. And I would love to hear like a separate presentation, or maybe like a summation of that book, or maybe a highlight of the exercises that you got out of it, because I think that reserves
Bring Derek in.
a more of a highlight.
Would
Or an
also like
interview.
links to it.
What links to it? Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
D?
Go ahead, Deidre.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, or an interview about the author. That'd be cool too.
Or the interview with the
Um,
author, and make it like a special podcast,
Yeah.
like one-off kind of thing.
Who is the author, actually? I'm curious.
Derek Burrows is the author, and he's actually put it on YouTube as he's read the individual chapters, so you
Oh,
can
wow.
get it online or on YouTube. The holistic self-assessment.
That's cool.
Nice.
We should definitely interview him. Like, not as part of our 3 episodes a week, but as an extra, like the way we'll be doing with the face reading.
Wait, did you say that Derek Bros was in autonomy?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
That's cool. I used to watch his YouTube videos. I didn't know he was in autonomy. Or Kurt used to watch his videos. I would listen along.
If I'm mistaken, my apologies, Derek. But yeah, my understanding was he's
Chris Macmillan says he has all of his books signed, so he must be in autonomy since he's like part of the family.
We have a big extended family.
We have a big family. And Chris, answer our question. Is he really in autonomy, or is it just Michael's imagination?
I thought I heard him say
That's a pretty cool fantasy.
So we've talked a lot about self-discovery over the past 3 days. I think we've done a pretty good job of kind of giving a brief overview to this subject, because there's a heck of a lot more that we can go into. But we're going to move on in the coming week. We're going to be talking about something else, step 2 in this 8-step process. The second being values, and talking about values and determining values, and how do we get into all that stuff, and that will be next week. And so we've got the next segment of this, and I just want to get other people's input on what you're looking for in that regard.
I found this really interesting when I was doing my birth chart. Please, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but the way that I was reading it is that my My, what is it? Not my rising sign, my star sign is not my enduring personality. They're just the values that I want to adhere to. Was that correct? That's how I was understanding it. Whereas my rising sign is more what I do day to day.
We should ask
So
Nathan.
I wrote down the values.
Should ask Nathan. Yeah.
We should ask Nathan. Yeah.
I'm like, so does that mean I'm a crazy fly by the seat of your pants person, but in reality I'm a balanced and stable individual? That seems like, no wonder I feel like a dichotomy half the time.
I know, right? I found that too. I'm just like, oh.
Because I'm a Sagittarius with
For
Libra
me.
rising. So it's the Sagittarius crazy and then the Libra rising.
I was going to suggest
Wow.
surrounding values. It'd be a good time to talk about managing or realizing your energy levels, because you have to have a priority. And sometimes your values are going to be very different from other people because you're struggling with something that's worse or not as worse, you know, not comparable to someone else. Yeah, I was like, that's not the right word. Sorry, folks. My grammar is really off tonight.
It's all good. You're perfect just the way you are. So,
I'm good at grammar.
Exactly. I'm really looking forward to next week, but I think before next week hits, at some time that's undisclosed yet over the weekend, I will be doing a face reading with Dennis. Is that correct?
Definitely.
Sometime
we'll
over
see
the weekend.
What values will come out of that.
And we'll be doing it live streaming, so I'll be analyzing Dennis's face in great detail in a live stream over this weekend.
Oh man, I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be awesome.
Oh, you guys don't have to be on the call.
You
can just listen on YouTube.
I don't know.
You do have a little beep something, right? To beep out the very intimate details that you're going to find out. I'm super excited about next week too, about values. That's something like working with values and determining values for myself, but also together with my fellow instructors and students of the little organization that I set up here in Germany and in Jamaica as well. That was like it was a marking experience for us. Because it's one thing, if you think about yourself, what is valuable for you, what are the values that you want to adhere to, that you live up to, but it's a whole different thing if you have a group of people. And that's why at this point I'm even going to throw it out for us, that's something we should even do, like as a group, as a team, to identify and define the values. What do we stand for? And it should not be something that we grasp out of the hot air, like something eerie, like what we dream of to be, but it should be something that we already have, and that's important for us. And that was like a really interesting process, because as a group, we and that was back in Jamaica with my students as well. I used that extensively because we gave ourselves as an organization a set of values that we thought that would describe us, but that's also something that we continuously would want to live up to. So it gave us like a standard, that we would like to see ourselves and that we wanted to be identified with. And for the new students that came in, as well as for the instructors, that would go out into in communities, working with children, with adults, or like when I was working at prisons as well, it was something that I carried with me. I didn't have to put it in my backpack. It was like inside of me, and it was something, I used on a daily basis, like to structure classes and sessions. And I continue to use that working with clients as well, because it's also part of finding out, as Willow said earlier, where they are, of building rapport, what are values in their life, what do they want to live up to, and so I think it's really essential, and even then to pass positive values on to other people, to children especially, like, oh no, we're not just like throwing up our legs and kicking at each other, like, doing capoeira, but actually, what you're practicing is friendship, or you're shaking hands before and after, or it's self-control, or that's a value as well. Like you're controlling your body physically so you don't hurt your friend, and that means that you have to control your emotions as well. So there's a whole array of things that you're doing, and it's putting light and awareness to what people are already doing and to what they're living up already. And sometimes it's something that they already have, and that to make it, we make them more conscious of what is really important to them in their lives. And I think that's the potential that lies ahead of us for the next week.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we've got a real opportunity here with what we're doing to really demonstrate to our audience and really to each other too, as we kind of build this operation, this podcast that we're doing. We really are going to be able to demonstrate to an audience, how to do it the right way, and how to build a level of trust between us and understand how to get the most out of each other and really present the best product that we can as a group of people for those that we're trying to serve. I think it's going to be an awesome experience, and I'm really grateful to be with you guys and doing this together.
So
I
now,
think we can really help a lot of people.
if we want to do a value sort before Monday or before Sunday, our planning meeting, the values list has been included in our blog posts as well as in all of the podcasts for this self-discovery series for this week. So the last 3 podcasts. So all of our tools have been listed in all of those podcast descriptions. And so you can always find it on YouTube or Facebook, wherever it's possible, or on our website, which is raisingexcellence.live. It's finally coming together. So, the value sort is the first step I do when I do a mission and vision with a client. I start with a value sort as well, because that mission and that vision really comes out of whatever they hold dear to their heart.
And we have our biggest value in the name already, right? Excellence, so that's a good one to start from.
And resilience in our mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, with that said, I think we're done for the day. If anybody's got any remaining comments, please throw it out there. Have we got any questions or comments from the Peanut Gallery that you might want to address at this point?
The Peanut Gallery on YouTube and Facebook is not talking to us right now. The Peanut Gallery on Discord is not really saying anything. So, but we do have a few listeners on Discord, and we have a few listeners on YouTube and Facebook. So that's kind of fun. I'm enjoying this process. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening and chipping in. Really appreciate that. Looking forward to more.
All right. I'm going to close it out then.
Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Next week, Mondays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern. Check us out.